What is up, everyone? Welcome to episode 150 of the Nest Podcast. I'm your boy, Brandon, joined as always by my co-host, Zach. Zach, what's up, my man?
What up?
Not much, man. We're at 150 episodes now. Can you believe it?
It's wild.
We're getting there.
We're creeping up on our 3 years.
3-year anniversary will be in August. So just a couple more weeks away from that. We've got some big things in store between now and then to kind of tide us over and to generate some interest and build to that 3-year extravaganza show where we will be giving away some prizes and stuff like that per the norm on the Nest Podcast. Stay tuned later in the episode to find out how you can be entered to win some of those sweet prizes. Some of them might be like t-shirts like this, and you're not wearing yours, but you've got one of the other designs that we've got available in the store right now. So check those out. You might be able to win some of those. But
sure.
Zach, I want to tip my cap real quick to all the fathers. We just celebrated Father's Day here in the United States, and I want to, tip of the cap to all the fathers out there doing their thing. My Father's Day was not that great because, as the listeners will know, I'm still battling pneumonia, and it's actually spread to both lungs now. So I have pneumonia in both of my lungs. So if you see me while you're watching the live broadcast tonight, go mute and cough off onto the side of the screen, you'll know why, because I do still have to do that from time to time. It sucks, but the show must go on. I spent Saturday night at the emergency room because my oxygen levels dropped so drastically that I couldn't breathe, basically. So Veronica and I sat at the emergency room all night, got some steroids and some new antibiotics and all that good stuff, and got me back stabilized and sent me off to work today. So wonderful. I guess that's life with pneumonia.
Yes, for sure. But,
how was your weekend?
Pretty uneventful. We just pretty much did the usual. Obviously, we don't have our family here in St. Louis, so we did the proverbial phone calls and stuff, and then just basically was a normal weekend.
Right on. That's always fun, though. A nice, relaxing weekend, getting to hang out with the wife. I know you don't have kids yet, but maybe one day that'll be coming for you, so you'll be able to celebrate Father's Day.
Right.
So we've got a lot to talk about tonight, so let's go ahead and get right into it. And of course, those that are watching live, they saw that the name of this episode is It's Sho Time, and there is a W missing off of the word show. That wasn't by accident. That was intentional, because we're talking about Shohei Ohtani, and that dude is showing out. Can you believe the week that he just had?
It's unreal. I saw an MLB post that was saying the list of stuff he did each day of the week, and it was like the best you've ever seen, pretty much.
Yeah, he literally has had the best week of all time. He had a home run Tuesday, a home run Wednesday. Thursday, he went out and pitched 6 innings, gave up 1 earned run, had 5 strikeouts, picked up the dub. Friday night, he went out and hit 2 bombs. Saturday, he hit a homer. And guess what? Sunday, another home run just to stay in shape. Dude surged ahead of Vladdy Guerrero Jr. as the home run leader right now. And, going into the All-Star game, he looks unstoppable. He already has announced that he's going to be in the home run derby, and I presume he's going to be in the All-Star game itself. I know he's leading voting right now as the DH, and wouldn't it be something if he also got to pitch a frame?
Yeah, that'd be cool. I think they should definitely try to make that happen. Get him in DH for a couple innings, and then at the back end of the game, get him to at least pitch a couple outs or something. That'd be cool.
Yeah, I'm saying like maybe the 6th, 7th inning, somewhere in there. Let the starters get their shine and all that stuff, and then let Shohei go out there and pitch a little bit too, because that's the type of season that he's having, where he's going out there, he's dealing on the mound, he's out there, he's mashing at the plate. Dude's having a phenomenal season, and it makes me look really smart that I picked him preseason to be my AL MVP.
Yeah, for sure. And I've been a critic of Shohei's, just simply because I think it's a little too much on the body to throw as hard as pitchers do these days and to swing for the fences like he does. I mean, as long as he can keep it up and stay healthy, more power to him. I love to see it. But it's given me a little pause to learn that he is going to be in the home run derby, because I think that might be an area where he could potentially injure a shoulder or something if he overworks that a little too much. Because I mean, if you really want to go hard in the home run derby, you're swinging a lot. So I mean, I would love to see him do well in it, but man, I would maybe take a little bit off just so you don't have any issues or something. I mean, you're not gonna better your career or better your team or anything like that if you win the home run derby. It's really all just for show.
Which it's not like the Angels are really going anywhere anyway. So maybe he is out for those personal accolades this year instead of the team accolades.
Sure.
How is it that the Angels have the two best players on the planet and they still are mediocre as a team?
Yep.
But to your point, Zach, I think a lot of times the guys go out in these home run derbies and stuff like that, and it does mess them up a little bit. I know Aaron Judge said that he felt that he was off after the home run derby a few years ago and hasn't hit in one since. Of course, a couple of years ago, whenever it was Pete Alonso and Vlad Guerrero Jr. just going stroke for stroke in the home run derby, both of those guys were pretty much exhausted by the end of the evening, and they had a hard time getting going again in the second half of the season. So it will be interesting to see if Shohei goes out there and if he goes and hits bombs like we think that he will. And then if he's able to just keep pace and stay on track in the second half of the season.
Right. And I think it might be worthwhile to look into shortening the home run derby, because I think it's cool. It's a cool event. It's cool to see all the sluggers get together and compete amongst themselves. But at a certain point, it kind of gets boring just to see them hit bomb after bomb after bomb. So maybe shorten that a little bit, and then you get to preserve the health and the stamina of those players. Might be a good idea. I don't know, but
no, they've tweaked the rules so much over the years. I remember back whenever like Griffey and those guys were in the home run derby, they had a certain number of balls, a certain number of swings, and that was it.
Yeah.
And now it's a timer. They have hit as many as you can within this time frame. If you hit a certain number so far, I think it's like 450 plus, you get added time. So that's more swings. It really does take a lot out of these guys to swing with power that many times in such a short period of time. And then you rest for a few minutes and you got to come back up and do it all over again if you keep advancing. So it is very taxing on these guys. Maybe that's why you only see the young guys doing it and you don't see these 12-year vets. Because, I mean, guys like Stanton, he would be somebody that you would want to see in this event all the time with his type of power, having pitches groove down the middle. He could just sit there and mash, but of course he's always a little bit injured. He doesn't want to go out there and, like you said, hurt a shoulder, hurt a hamstring rotating too hard or whatever it is that he does, and he sits out of them. So a lot of these younger kids are out there shining, and it's good for them because it's good for growing the game with this young crop of talent, like your Pete Alonso's, your Fernando Tatis Jr.'s, your Shohei Ohtani's, good, those guys that are young and up and coming. This is their chance to really make a name for themselves. I just hope, to your point, that they don't get hurt doing it.
Yeah, and I think there's something to that idea of make it a pitch limit, a ball limit, 50 balls or whatever it might be. And I would, if they gave me the keys, I would say it's just one round and each player gets 50 balls or whatever the number would be. And whoever gets the most wins. I don't think there's a need to continue it on and do rounds and stuff because, one, I think it gets a little boring after a while. And two, if you're going to have your best players put on this show, you do not want them to be hurt for the rest of the year. You want it to be fun. You want it to be an exciting event, and you don't want it to take away from the rest of the season.
Yeah, good point. But I guess MLB doesn't really care too much about guys getting hurt or taking away from the rest of the season because they're up and changing rules in the middle of a season. And we have notable pitchers coming out saying, hey, this is causing guys to get hurt. So, maybe they don't care about that. Maybe all they care about is ratings for that one night. And then, if you get hurt, that's on you.
Yeah, I could believe that too. I mean, just to jump right into what you're talking about, Tyler Glasnow came out and said that he basically is pretty confident that the rules change of no substances whatsoever for pitchers led to his injury
Mhm.
I'm no doctor. I don't know if that's true or not, but I do know that it's kind of a weird move to change something so drastically in the middle of a season. I mean, you're talking about pitchers who have been able to use at least some form of rosin or whatever legal substance for decades, and you just up and change it at the highest level where these guys are touching 100 pretty easily, 95 at the lowest. And this is one of the best pitchers in the whole league. And now he's out for a good amount of time. And he's saying that this is what caused it. I'm just going to go ahead and take his word for it. And it's a shame to see. And like you said earlier, I don't think MLB really cares. And I agree that they're probably just looking for ratings at this point.
Yeah, I'd have to take Tyler at his word as well. He's been one of the best pitchers this season, and for him to all of a sudden get hurt and to not be able to pitch the remainder of the season really sucks, because he was out there dealing for the Rays. And I don't know how much you've kept up with it, but since he got hurt, the Rays have lost 6 games in a row.
Right.
Not saying that Tyler Glasnow makes all that difference, because there are other guys on the team. He only pitches every 5 days, but that was a huge blow to that organization. And to know that they don't have him, that means the bullpen will probably get used a lot more. They won't be as well rested for the other starters who might struggle a little bit here and there. So it has a ripple effect across the entire organization. So it's interesting, but it does suck because Tyler Glasnow, he's got like a Tommy John type of injury. They haven't full on said that he needed the Tommy John surgery, but they're treating it kind of like a rehab for Tommy John, which is pretty interesting to see if he can rehab and not actually have to go under the knife. But it is what it is. And then, of course, you mentioned him, and we've got other notable pitchers, guys like Garrett Cole, who in 2 separate interviews, he's stumbled his way around not being able to answer the question, yes or no, did you use anything on your pitches? I don't know how to answer this. And, that one was pretty funny and comical, but it's because he kind of felt like he was getting set up in that question. If he says, yes, I was using that, then they're going to be like, boom, cheater. If he says, no, I didn't use that, then he's going to get, boom, you're a liar. Mm-hmm. Either way, he's screwed answering that question. And then in the most recent video that went viral of him, he's literally crying, pleading for MLB to just work with the pitchers. Like we've been pitching all season long. We've been doing this. Apparently, Garrett Cole's been using the spider tack for a while now, and now he's got to quit cold turkey because this starts today.
Yeah.
As of today, June 21st, 2021, suspensions are going to start happening for guys getting caught using sticky stuff. And that's going beyond just the spider tack now, because now they can't even use the sunscreen and rosin. They can't use the bullfrog. They can't use any of the other stuff, the pine tar or whatever, to get a better grip on the ball. Like Chris said, they get a better grip. They get better accuracy. That's what they're trying to do, is get more accurate. Yeah, will it ramp up the fastball a little bit more? Sure. Will it ramp up the slider a little bit more, give it a little bit more break to it? Sure. But the difference between the pine tar and the rosin and the sunscreen and all that stuff, that just grip. Mm-hmm. That's making sure that they can hold the ball and throw it without it slipping out of their hands and at 95 going at somebody's face, like Kevin Pillar found out.
Right.
The other stuff, yeah, that is accelerating it to a superhuman level. I'm holding a baseball in my hand right now. This is an actual MLB baseball from a game in 2019. This is a batting practice ball, so it wasn't ever actually in play. So it never got rubbed up with the mud and all that stuff. It never got scuffed or anything really. And it's slick. Like I'm squeezing my fingers together and you can see it's just shooting out of my hands. Oh, yeah. If I had that spider tack on my hands, it would stay there until I forcefully let it go. And what I would do then is I would drag it down. It's almost like that lever, and I would pull on that lever and it would just create insane spin as it's flying to the plate. And that's what this spider tack is doing. It's allowing them to hold on to the ball to the very last second so that they can generate that spin. But we've got all kinds of guys in MLB freaking out right now. And then I've read earlier today that Hall of Famer Chipper Jones, he basically said, I've got my popcorn ready. I'm going to sit back and I'm going to wait for the regression to happen because it's coming. These guys that have been using this stuff, all of a sudden we've got guys that are at an elite pitching level when 2 to 3 years ago they were mediocre at best. And I'm just going to sit back and watch them fail. I think that was a bit of a jab at Trevor Bauer. What do you think?
Yeah, 100%. I think he's on the top of that list for guys that were watching and waiting for them to just fall off the cliff. He's been very good this year. And he was, like I said a few weeks ago, he's one of those guys that went to a pitching camp, I guess you'd call it, and tried to get his spin rate to go higher. He came out and said that there's really no way to up your spin rate at the major league level. And lo and behold, he up and did it. And that really tells me that he was probably using something. And I'm sure a lot of the other pitchers were too. But now that this is pretty stringent, it'll be very interesting to see what pitchers stay at the high level and what pitchers kind of fall off and their ERA starts to go up. You mentioned that today is the day when MLB starts putting in these no substance rules or whatever. Jacob deGrom was basically
first out of the chute,
frisked down today, and it was after his first inning. The umpires wanted to check his glove, check his hat. They even checked his belt. So it might be just because this is a new thing and this is the first day of it, and they want to be ahead of it or whatever. But that's setting a precedent. Obviously Jacob deGrom is probably the best pitcher in the last 10 years plus. And I don't really know of many people that are accusing him as outright as they are guys like Trevor Bauer and Garrett Cole. And for the umpires to go after him and check him very thoroughly tells me that they mean business and tells me that they're going to be pretty stringent on this and not just look the other way. So yeah, I'm interested to see who gets popped, if somebody gets popped, during a game or whatever. And I 100% believe that you'll see guys like Trevor Bauer, Garrett Cole, their numbers will start to go down for sure because they can't use their favorite substance.
Well, deGrom was the first one up. He was the sacrificial lamb essentially because he pitched in the day game of the Mets doubleheader today. So he was the one that kind of got pushed out there before anybody else even had a chance to take the mound. So all eyes were on him. It's a deGrom start anyway, so all eyes were already on that game. This just magnified it even more. But you brought up a good question or a good point about the umpires frisking him down and checking everything and all that stuff. My big question with this whole new policy and all this stuff is MLB umpires. These were the ones that were once trusted to be the guys before the game to rub up the balls, to make sure they had the proper tackiness to them, to make sure that everything was in order, that they were uniform, that they were good to go. And they passed that off to the clubbies. Some clubhouse kid that's probably like 21 years old who is trying to get the uniforms ready, trying to get the bats lined up, trying to get everything done. Oh, by the way, you also have to take the time to rub up these balls and blah, 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 blah. The umps pass this off to them. They pawn that responsibility off. And now we're going to turn around and trust these same umpires that have pawned that off, that have trouble calling balls and strikes on the regular basis. And we're going to have to trust their judgment from their untrained eye.
Right.
These umpires didn't go to any kind of special school to be able to detect these foreign substances. They're just winging it. And to Jared's point earlier, this is a mid-season change. This is something that they implemented in the middle of a season, not even at the All-Star break. Like 2 weeks before the All-Star game, they're like, oh, changing everything. And this is definitely going to be a huge topic come the next CBA.
Yeah. Oh, this is going to be a shit show. No ifs, ands, or buts. These umpires have been trained to call balls and strikes, and yet they can't do that very well. And we've complained about it ad nauseum this season. And I think everyone has. Every team has had some sort of terrible call, either go their way or not. And now you give this other power, I guess you could call it, to the umpires to decide, oh, yep, this is a foreign substance. You're out of here. It's going to be strange. And how are they going to know what's what? If a guy is sweaty, can he not touch dirt? I mean, that's a foreign substance, and I don't think anyone's out there saying that dirt makes your velocity go higher. It's going to be very strange. And I think there's obviously certain things that you can tell outright. When a guy's using pine tar, it's a dark substance. You can see it on most people's skin pretty easily. You can see it on the ball, on the glove, whatever. But where does it end? And like you said, these guys were not trained to detect substances or whatever. They're just going off of their eye and whatever they decide is right. And it's going to be weird for sure.
Yeah. I mean, I was listening to the Starting Nine podcast, and Dallas Braden, a former MLB pitcher, was talking about how now guys are basically choosing between their health and if they're going to pitch or not, because some of these guys are out there in the beating sun, and they're worried that if they're using sunscreen and they happen to sweat in 90-degree heat, which is human nature to do, that if they rub their arm, they're going to get a 10-day suspension because people are going to perceive that as cheating. Like, so now they're opting not to wear sunscreen and risking getting sunburnt, which could then lead to melanoma, blah, blah, blah. You know, I'm not going to sit here and pretend to be a doctor or whatever, but you can put the pieces of that puzzle together, and how guys could get really, really antsy about that, especially if it runs in their families or something like that, where it's like, hey, my mom died of this stuff, you know, like that's serious business. I don't want to not wear my sunscreen.
Yeah. I mean, even at a lesser note, it sucks to get sunburned.
Yeah. Like even if you're sunburnt, you're going to suck for the next few days because you're going to feel like a lobster.
Right. And these are guys that are playing out in the sun all summer long. Most places are outdoor stadiums. It's a no-brainer that guys are using sunscreen, and it just so happens to be a little bit tacky, and they kind of use that to their advantage a little bit. So what? I do not understand it. I think if MLB wanted to tackle the issue of using spider tack and using all this other crazy stuff, then do that. I think this blanket just ban everything approach is really dumb. And not only did they do it in the middle of the season, they just did it on a whim. They just decided nothing. You can't use anything. We give you a rosin bag. Can't use that anymore, I would assume. It doesn't make any sense.
A rosin bag is basically just a bag of gravel. That's all that is. It kicks up some dust and it gives you a little bit of, it removes the moisture from your hand, essentially, right, is what it does. And yep. I don't know. One thing that is kind of interesting about all of this is, out of all the people that are talking about it and all the people that are making comments about it and having press conferences and stuff like that, one of the most outspoken individuals in Major League Baseball has been absolutely quiet. Granted, he is out on the IL right now. He's been on the shelf. He's been away from the team and all that stuff. But this is a spot where you would think somebody like a Justin Verlander would have a lot to say. His silence is deafening, in my opinion.
Yeah, I agree with that. He's been very silent. And like you said, sure, he's on the IL or whatever, but you would think he'd be a prime candidate for radio stations, for TV shows, to get on their shows and interview about this kind of stuff. Because if you remember, during the juiced ball year, he was bitching up a storm about it and saying that pitchers are having trouble and blah, 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 blah. I would love to hear his take on this, because I have no idea if he's a guy who's used something other than pine tar or the normal stuff, but I'd like to hear what he'd have to say about it. You know, it's very telling what a pitcher talks about or how they go about the issue when it comes to stuff like this. We mentioned how Garrett Cole handled it, and it was strange. If you've noticed, Trevor Bauer is trying to make the normal stuff seem worse than it is. Did you catch that little clip of him? I can't remember what broadcast it was on, but he claimed that all he had on his hands was sunscreen and the ball was sticking to his hands. Yep. So I think those guys that are trying to divert away from the stuff, it's telling to me. I have no idea what people have used, but when you go about conversations like this the way that they have, it tells me something.
Yeah, and I'm not going to sit here and say that Justin Verlander for sure was cheating or using any kind of illegal substance, but what I can tell you is that in 2017 with the Detroit Tigers, he had a 3.82 ERA, and then with the Houston Astros the following or that same season, once he got traded to Houston, he only had a 1.06. So he had a much better ERA, much better win-loss. His spin rate increased dramatically when he got to Houston, and everything kind of turned around. He was tracking downward in his trajectory as far as being at the end of his career as a pitcher. All of a sudden, he was back to being an ace. And does that happen usually to guys that are in their 34 through?
At one point was probably the best pitcher out there. And of course he was on the team with a huge scandal, and he basically said, I don't have anything to do with that or whatever, because he's a pitcher. I guess he gets away with it. But if it does come out that he was using something of his own, then he can't really sit on his high horse. So I think you're right. I think his silence is very telling.
Yeah. And, we grew up during the steroid era whenever, guys like Mark McGwire, Barry Bonds, Sammy Sosa, those guys, they were juicing and they were hitting balls out of the yard. It got a lot of people excited about baseball. It got a lot of people back into baseball that had fallen off. This is another tainted era of baseball that our kids, younger generations are going to grow up and be like, oh yeah, I remember whenever the spin rate thing was a big deal. I remember whenever everybody was using spider tack to get extra revolutions on the baseball whenever they would throw their pitches and all that stuff. Is it going to lead to the exclusion of some of these guys from the Hall of Fame? Because if that's the case, if this comes out to guys like Bauer, like Verlander, like Garrett Cole, DeGrom, any of these guys, if it's revealed that they definitively were using these substances to get an unfair advantage in a professional baseball game, is it going to be the same thing where 10 years after they retire, we're sitting there like, I don't know, man, they should still be in, because Barry Bonds still isn't in the Hall of Fame. And for the MLB's all-time home run king to not be in the Hall of Fame, that raises a lot of questions. MLB's all-time hit king isn't in the Hall of Fame, but for other reasons with Pete Rose. But, the Hall of Fame is starting to really take a hit because of how they enforce these rules and how big of a deal they make out of a lot of this stuff.
Yeah, that's a great point. I mean, when you've got some of the best players ever not in your Hall of Fame because of some sort of rule that they didn't catch until it was too late, and these guys had put up all these stats already, and then they find out, okay, this is not good. But it's not like before that MLB had this stringent steroid testing program, and they would have caught anyone doing it. No, it was basically the Wild West. And same with this substance stuff. If you weren't blatantly having pine tar or anything like that on you, you got away with it up until now. And I've said it before, that's not on the players. These players do everything they can to gain an edge. It's on the league to make them play the game cleanly. And if you're going to be lackadaisical about it, people are going to start getting away with stuff. And then you come in middle of a season like this and do a huge change. And this could be another black eye for MLB as a whole if some of these great pitchers that we've seen throughout the years have some sort of tainted history with a substance, and it keeps them out of the Hall of Fame.
Yep, absolutely. And, one final thing on this before we move on. MLB owns, I don't know if they own it, but I know they have something to do with Rawlings. They own Rawlings.
Yes.
So they own the company that makes the ball that is played in Major League Baseball. How is there any issues with coming up with a ball that's already got a little pre-stickiness to it, a little pre-tacky to it? Why do you have to rub it in mud from Delaware? That makes no sense at all. That's just That's like something that they did back when there were only 6 teams in the entire league. And it's like, oh yeah, we'll rub it in this dirt from this river in Delaware because it's the same dirt. Now you have 30 teams across the United States of America and Canada. Why not just come up with a substance in a lab that puts a little bit of tack on there that's approved league-wide, and then you don't have this issue? The the Korean Baseball League, they have pre-sticky balls. They don't have an issue with this.
Yeah, I completely agree. The mud thing has always been so strange to me. There's this one place that has this mud, and all of MLB uses it to rub up their balls. From the factory, make the ball less slick. Like, you can make it out of whatever the hell you want to. Clearly, the MLB and Rawlings is able to change the balls on a game by game basis. It seems like sometimes they're flying out of the park, sometimes they're dead as can be. Make it to where these balls aren't so slick, and maybe they won't even need any substance.
Yeah, it's bizarre. Almost as bizarre as we've been doing this show for 150 episodes now, Zach. And for the almost 3 years that we've been doing this, you have yet to pick an NFL football team to follow.
Fact. That is
so. For those that are listening that don't know, Zach doesn't have a favorite football team. He likes football. He watches football any given Sunday that it's football season. He plays fantasy football. You've played fantasy football now for 7 years or whatever.
Oh yeah.
But you've yet to identify as a fan of any of these teams. Guess he's not an Eagles fan, Chris. Good try though. But he might be by the end of our next couple weeks, because what we're going to do is we are going to solve this issue this year, and we are going to get you a favorite team, Zach. and I wanted to be as fair about this as possible. I didn't want you to just have to be like, okay, well, I guess I'll be a Chiefs fan, because then you would be labeled as a bandwagon fan and all that stuff. So I wanted to give you the fairest, most purest way to adopt a fan base out there. So what I did is I took all 32 NFL teams and I threw them up into a bracket. I seeded them accordingly based off of how they finished in 2020. So the Chiefs are a number 1 seed and the Bucks are a number 1 seed on the other side of the bracket. And then it just worked itself out down through the ranks. And what we're going to do is we're going to put these teams up against one another, and we're going to narrow it down until we have one team left. And, I don't want it to be just, do you like the Raiders or the Chargers? Okay, that team moves on. So we're going to make it a little bit more fun. I've filled out some random questions on a wheel, and we're going to spin the wheel, and that question is going to help us determine who is your team that you're going to cheer for this year.
All right.
Are you ready for this, Zach?
I'm here for it.
All right. So let me go ahead and share my screen so that we can see the wheel, so that those watching can at least enjoy that and get to see that along with us. See, let's get rid of that screen. There we go. There we go. All right. So on the wheel, you can see the questions there. Some of the questions are like the biggest party city. You have your own choice board, the best barbecue for some of these places, best uniforms, etc. We'll get to them. And the matchups this week, we're going to stick with the AFC side of things this week, and we'll do the NFC next week. So where do you want to start? Do you want to start in the middle? Do you want to start with the number 1 seed? Where do you want to go?
Let's start with the 1 seed.
All right. So the 1 seed versus the 16 seed. So we've got the Chiefs versus the Texans. Zach, I'm going to spin the wheel, and we're going to narrow it down between these two teams real quick.
All right.
All right. Where would you rather go on a vacation? To Kansas City or to Houston?
Oh, man.
Now, let's see. What do they have in these towns that would be good for a vacation?
Kansas City has one of my neighbors told me that they have a cool World War I museum. Obviously, they have really good barbecue. And other than that, it's probably not a whole lot. Houston is a huge city. It has the Gulf of Mexico not too far away. Galveston's not too far. I have family near there. My wife has family in Houston. I'm going to have to say Houston. I think Houston would be a funner vacation.
Plus, you can go and hang out with our boy Adam.
That's a great point.
So already in the very first round, the number 16 seed has knocked off the number 1 seed.
Crazy.
Zach is not going to be a Chiefs fan.
And what's funny is the Chiefs line up for me to be a fan of theirs pretty perfectly. I've got an uncle who's been a Chiefs fan since I can remember. And I live in Missouri now. They're 4 hours away. But I couldn't just jump on the bandwagon just because they won a Super Bowl. It felt weird. I didn't have the connection like you should to a team that you root for. So I just never could pull the trigger. And here they are, knocked off.
You know, you don't know how happy it makes me that the Chiefs are already eliminated in this bracket.
There's only room for one bandwagon, right?
Hey,
Patriots.
You know, do you want to keep going in order? So the 2 seed next, or do you want to just okay? So the number 2 seed on our bracket is the Buffalo Bills, and they match up against the New York Jets. So we got 2 New York teams going at it here in the first round. Let's see what our question is for them. Ooh.
Best uniforms, the Bills.
The Bills. So you like the red, white, and blue,
Yeah.
the blue uniform with that white helmet with the bill on the side. That is a pretty sleek uniform. The all green of the Jets, you know, it kind of looks like a booger running down the field, right?
And their logo is just boring. It's their name in a circle and it's green. Like, great. Yeah, you really tried hard on that.
Cool. So that one was a quick and easy one. I agree. I think the Bills definitely take the cake on that one. Number 3, we've got the Baltimore Ravens versus the Cincinnati Bengals.
Okay.
So let's see what we got here. Ooh.
Nice
So
choice.
you get a freebie on this one.
Okay.
So you basically get to say, "Oh, I like this team better, so I want them to advance."
Okay. Ravens and Bengals. God, the Bengals are terrible. Ravens.
Well,
Ravens.
before you say that, let me try to talk you into it. The Bengals may have been terrible historically, but they have some up and coming talent. They've got Joe Burrow, who is going to be a good quarterback in the league. They've got Tyler Boyd at wide receiver, who's great. Jamar Chase just joined up with that team, so they've got good wide receivers. That T. Higgins, they've got 3 wide receivers that could be top tier wide receivers in their careers. I don't know, man. If I'm picking, I may look to go to the Cincinnati Bengals.
Yeah, I think that's fair. I think the Ravens have had their heyday when that defense was just murdering people. No pun intended. But I think their best days are behind them. I mean, anything can happen, obviously. But yeah, you might be right. I think Joe Burrow poses a good reason to like that team.
Like Chris said, though, they do need an offensive line. That is their major glaring weakness. That's what led to Joe Burrow getting the torn ACL last season.
Right. True. Yeah. You know what? We'll go Cincinnati.
Ooh, so the 14 seed knocks off the 3 seed. I'm loving all the upsets so far. This is great. Let's see. Let's go ahead and talk about the number 4 seed, which is the Indianapolis Colts, and they pair off against the Denver Broncos. Title Town. So what this question is which city has the most world championships? And let's see. I know the Colts have like one in their career or in their franchise history.
They had one with Peyton, right?
Yeah. I don't think the Pacers ever won a championship with Reggie Miller. I think they always lost in the Eastern Conference Finals.
Oh yeah.
I know the Broncos have several Super Bowls. I think the Nuggets may have won an NBA title back in the day. The Rockies never won any. The Avalanche has won a few. So I would say the winner of this one is the Broncos based off of them having more championships in their city.
Yeah. Yeah, I think you're right.
Without doing too much research, I think that's pretty fair.
Yeah. And that one's a pretty easy one because for Indianapolis, all you
Colts have 2, says
Colts
Chris.
So yeah, I could see Colts having 2 with Peyton, I guess.
No, they only had 1 with Peyton, but
okay.
they probably had 1 back when they were the Baltimore Colts or whatever.
Oh, okay, sure.
All right, the number 5 seed on our list is the Cleveland Browns, and they're matched up against my New England Patriots.
Ooh.
So this could be an interesting one. So let's see what the wheel says. Best uniforms once again.
Wow, that's interesting because the Browns are another team that I could get behind. Obviously, I lived in Cleveland for a few years. We have friends there. They're a huge underdog that everyone likes to root for.
But that uniform sucks.
The uniforms, it's gotten better. They changed it like maybe 5 years ago or so when OBJ basically came over. They kind of updated it, but it's still just brown and orange, and it's not great. The Patriots are at least, red, white, and blue, patriotic colors, whatever. Man.
What about the helmets? Let's think about the helmets. You got a plain orange helmet for the Browns, which makes no sense. And you've got the flying Patriot on the side.
Yeah, that's a good point.
The silver helmet with the nice logo on the side of the helmet.
Yeah. Yeah, I think the Patriots have the better uniform. The Browns uniform is just too plain.
I agree. All right, Patriots moving on. All right, let's see. The 6th seed is the Los Angeles Chargers versus the Las Vegas Raiders. I had to look at the notes to make sure that I didn't say San Diego and Oakland respectively.
Right.
So let's see what the wheel says here. Best uniforms once again.
Okay, well, these are pretty decent uniforms here. The Raiders are kind of like they're like a not scary, but like they're like an intimidating uniform. They got black.
The silver and black looks good. Yeah,
the guy with the eye patch is legit. He's a tough dude. And then the bolts are cool. I like the I can't remember who used to do it, but they used to have the gloves where they do that little deal and then make a bolt out of both gloves. The powder blue, the baby blue Chargers uniforms. Man, this one's tough. We got any comments on this one? Says Raiders.
We got Chris saying the Raiders.
What are your thoughts here?
I'm with you on that. I think they both have good uniforms. I think they both have a decent looking outfit. If I'm going to lean one way or another, I'm going black and silver, though. I think the Raiders do have a little bit of a better look, more of a rugged, like traditional look. But I do like the Chargers uniform as well. It's up to you.
This one's a really tough one. I could go either, honestly, but I think if I'm forced, I'm going to have to say the Raiders as well. That black and silver is pretty legit, and those jerseys are pretty dope looking when people just wear them out and out.
Yeah, it's clean. Yeah. Like Chris said, I love that clean look.
For sure.
Let's see here. That was the number 6 seed. So we're going number 7 seed. This is going to be the Pittsburgh Steelers and the Jacksonville Jaguars. Down in Duval, they got Trevor Lawrence now. So,
oh yeah, biggest party city. Well, that's a pretty easy one.
So, Pittsburgh, the steelworking city, or Duval, a city on the beach.
I'm sure people do get down in Pittsburgh. Hardworking Midwestern people. They drink their Yingling, I'm sure. But I have to say, basically any city in Florida parties more than anyone. I mean, it's just a given. You're right on the water there. Florida's crazy anyway. So yeah, Jacksonville for sure.
Yeah, we got commenters saying Jacksonville all day on that one. Yep. Now we've got the last round match, or the last matchup for this round, and we're done for the night on this, and we'll be back to do more next week. And this is a matchup that I'm definitely interested in: the Titans versus the Dolphins, because both of these teams, they could be good. Okay. Most Hall of Famers.
Wow. Well,
this is one that's going to require a little bit of research, because the Titans also get to count the Oilers as part of their Hall of Famers.
That's what I was going to ask. Are we only talking about Titans players, or are we counting the Oilers? So we are counting the Oilers. Not that really adds too many people, I would imagine, but still. Let's see. Off the top of my head, I would assume that Eddie George and Steve McNair are Hall of Famers. Are they not?
Yes. I'm looking right now.
That's the only people I can think of from the Titans side that are Hall of Famers at this point. And then, of course, obviously, you've got good old Dan Marino on the other side of things. I believe Jason Taylor is a Hall of Famer too, isn't he, for the Dolphins?
Let's see. I believe Taylor is. I wish Jared was still on here. He would be able to tell us.
He just riddle them all off.
Yeah.
And then he's probably start complaining about Zach Thomas not being in the Hall of Fame.
Yeah, that's probably true.
Oh gosh. Yeah, the Oilers were around for a while. I barely remember. I remember them, the Oilers being on Madden 2000, I think. And that was like their last game. And then Eddie George made the cover of Madden 2001, I'm pretty sure.
See, here we go. This will tell me just the number of.
There you go.
If I could find either one of these teams on this list.
There's the Dolphins right there above the Cowboys.
Tennessee Titans have 5.
Okay.
And the Miami Dolphins have 8. So the Dolphins will move on.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah. I had a family friend's son who was older than me, and one of those guys you kind of look up to. You think they're cool if you're a kid. He was a Dolphins fan, and I wouldn't say that I followed them or whatever, but I definitely enjoyed watching Ricky Williams play. And Zach Thomas was insane to watch. Jason Taylor was wild to watch. So I'm glad the Dolphins got to advance there.
Yeah, for sure. That's a pretty good group of teams that got to advance on here for you. Just to recap real quick, the Houston Texans knocked off the Kansas City Chiefs. The Dolphins passed the Titans. The Patriots beat the Browns. The Broncos over the Colts. Raiders over the Chargers. Bengals over the Ravens. The Jacksonville Jaguars over the Pittsburgh Steelers, which is very common in that rivalry for the Jags to actually beat the Steelers. So that's perfect there. And the Bills beat the Jets. So you've got a 2 seed, a 16 seed, a 5 seed, no, a 12 seed, sorry, and a 3 seed. So you've got some good teams left in there.
Sweet. Yeah.
And then next week we'll tackle the NFC side of the bracket and narrow it down to the final 8 on that side. And we'll keep whittling this away, and eventually we'll get down to your new favorite team. And for being such a good sport about this, Zach, I'm going to buy you your first t-shirt of whatever team you end up landing on.
Perfect. I will rock it with pride.
And that'll be your team at least for the 2021 season.
There you go. Let's do it.
Let's clear the bases a little bit now. Let's talk a little bit about the Red Sox, and a little bit about the Cardinals. I know you guys just came off of the doubleheader in Atlanta where you split there for Sunday, but the Red Sox are back in sole possession of first place in the American League East. And the next series is actually against the Rays, so it could be a very big determining factor as to what happens in the AL East going forward. And the Rays have actually announced that they have promoted the number 1 prospect in baseball, Wander Franco, to debut against the Red Sox tomorrow night. How cool is that he's making his debut in such an impact moment? And do you think that that's out of necessity because the Rays have been floundering here lately?
I absolutely do. I think that losing streak that they're on is not good for them. Obviously, they were on quite a tear there, and boy, did it come to a crashing halt. I definitely think this is to just kind of change things up in the clubhouse, get a new face out there, get a new look, see what he can do. And if they can string a few wins, and if he can produce, he might just have a job for the rest of the year or for a while at least. So yeah, I'm interested to see what this kid can do.
Yeah, it will be fun. It will be fun to see. I hope that he saves his first big hits until after the Red Sox are out of town. Maybe when the Yankees are in town or something like that. But it will be cool to see the number 1 prospect in all of baseball get called up. So what's up with the Cardinals, man?
Well, we've had a rough go of things, but we're kind of crawling back to a decent team. We're at 500 or at least a little bit above. On that doubleheader, Waino had an amazing game one of that. He had 18 outs to get in that 7 innings. 11 of those were strikeouts.
It's pretty impressive.
He was just on a roll. And for a 39-year-old, that's pretty damn good. And the bats were able to back him up on that, scoring 9. And then in game 2, it all just kind of came crashing down. That offense made what was his name? Smiley. Something.
Yep.
Smiley.
Dylan Smiley, I believe it is.
They made him look like an absolute ace. And that's a guy that I don't really know anything about. And they had a no-hitter going up until the 6th, I think, and Goldie hit a single. It was rough. It was really rough to watch that second game because they could have easily won that. I mean, KK gave up 1 bomb to Acuna, and if you can get through the bulk of that Braves lineup with only 1 run given up in 7 innings, that's about as good as I can ask for. And the bats weren't there. They were not there at all that night. And it was sad to see, the team that is supposed to have one of the best infields in all of the National League has not performed on the offensive side. And it's really affecting that team. They're barely scraping by. And I think this next few series are going to help us out because they're pretty lackluster teams. We've got a 2-game series against the Tigers. The Pirates are coming to town. We're going to see the Diamondbacks and the Rockies. So those are pretty bottom of the barrel teams, and these are must-win games. If we can sweep some of these teams, that's a must. And
at least win the series.
Yeah, you definitely have to win like all of these series. And if we can just keep up with the Cubs, that'll be good because we're, I think, 3.5 games back right now. Might be more, might be less. I don't know if they played or not. We did not play today. But yeah, it's not over yet. The NL Central, no one's going to really run away with this division, but it's not good to be in this kind of slump. And we've got basically half of a season to go. So these little easy teams are going to need to be beaten for sure.
Yep, I agree. Yeah, and those are the games that you're going to look back on at the end of the season and be like, we had to win those games to get where we are now.
Right.
Are you going to be a first place team in contention or battling for a pennant come September time? Or are you going to be sellers at the trade deadline? This next week and a half is going to really decide which way you're going to go.
Yeah.
So it is a very important stretch of your season, and they are must-win games. This week, today specifically, marks the very first time since October 2019 that the LA Dodgers are underdogs in a baseball game. As hard to believe as that is, this is the first time that they've been projected to lose by Las Vegas. They are playing the San Diego Padres, and Yu Darvish is on the mound if you want the answer to that trivia question in the future. The Dodgers are 8-2 in their last 10, and the Padres are only 5-5. But Yu Darvish is 6-2 with a 2.57 ERA at home there in San Diego, and the Padres have been cooking as of late. So if you are a gambling man and want to actually make money betting on the Dodgers, tonight might be your night.
And I would imagine that a lot of people are going to put a bet in for the Dodgers simply because they are underdogs and they can make a lot of money.
It's not much. It's not much. Like if you bet $100, you're going to make 105. It's not a lot.
Right. But I mean, I can't imagine the last time that people put money on the Dodgers expecting to win anything. So yeah, that's very interesting. What are your specific odds for the team going against Yu Darvish?
I'm not sure. I don't have that in front of me. I mean,
your personal. What
do I think? I don't know. I like Yu Darvish. I think he's been good this season. I wonder about Tatis. I believe it was Saturday night. He left the game early with a bit of a shoulder injury. If he's got a lingering, nagging injury, that completely changes the dynamic of the San Diego Padres. If he's not able to play to 100% of his ability, then I think that will really make a difference.
Yeah. Yeah, I could definitely see that. He's the heart and soul of that team, and everyone kind of feeds off of him. If he's doing well, then that team is just awesome. I don't know. I think this is going to be a very telling and very interesting game to watch. We've said it before. We all basically expected the Dodgers to win the division again, but the Giants and the Padres are making a run for it, and it's crazy to see. So who knows? I mean, anything can happen. So I'm honestly completely clueless on this one. I think the Dodgers definitely have a chance to win, like they always do, but the Padres have proven that they're a legitimate team.
Yep, absolutely. I couldn't have said it better myself. Well, guys, we thank you so much for watching and commenting along tonight with us, and we hope you had a good time. And for those of you that have stuck around through the entirety, if you want a chance to win your very own Nest Podcast swag, be sure that you share out any of our live streams between now and our 3-year anniversary, and you'll be entered into a drawing to win some Nest Podcast shirts. Maybe we'll get some car decals or something like that we can throw in there as well. Have you work on that offline, Zach. But we'll give out some cool stuff. Zach, of course, is going to get his personal NFL team coming up soon. So that's something exciting that you can keep your eyes on and keep cheering for. I love getting other people's input on those teams, because sometimes we might not think about something, or we may not, have it in the back of our mind. Like when we were talking about Jacksonville, Chris dropped in there that they literally have the largest outdoor cocktail party for the Gators and the Bulldogs. I live in Jacksonville, and I didn't even think about that. But the Florida-Georgia game is a whole weekend in Jacksonville, Florida, that is just a huge party. So yeah, they definitely have a better party town than Pittsburgh. But yes, I love that we've had commenters letting us know their thoughts. And I hope that the guys from NFL Trash Talk 2021 enjoyed that part of it, because those guys love to talk trash. They love to drop their opinions. And next week, whenever we get into the NFC, we'll have a lot of fun talking about the Eagles, the Cowboys, some of those other teams out there that we all love to hate. So we'll see you next week, Monday night, same time, same place. We'll see you then. Peace.